All right, and now it's time for us to focus on our conversation tonight. We are going to be talking about matters relationship on Sunday Express. And here we want to look at two things. When you decide to call it quit, how do you do it amicably? And of course, what are some of the factors you need to decide before you get to that breaking point as a couple? And that is why we have in studio here Fred Abok. Fred is a family coach and a counselor joining us just to break this down and make it easy. Though they say it's not easy, love is not easy.
Not easy.
But you're here to try and help us understand some of these issues. Thank you so much for creating time for us tonight, Fred.
Thank you so much, Afin, for having me.
Yes. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
All right, so let's dive in straight away. We are talking about relationships tonight, and we are very specific about what we want to look at. It's all about mending the cracks in a relationship. But I want us to start from where it all begins. If you look at the trends, what do you think are some of the main issues that are currently causing conflicts among couples?
Yeah, thank you so much, Safin. Conflicts actually do come as a result of disgruntle and disunity within ourselves, not really within those we're living with, but when we are actually not satisfied with what actually our partners are doing. And so there are disgruntle. When we are dealing with issues within us that are actually causing animosity within, and we do not understand how to express them, that's a recipe for conflict.
So if you look at, for example, money, if you look at, for example, unfaithfulness, what is it that is now like a thorn in the flesh for a majority of couples? You know, because I know you interact with quite a number of couples on a regular basis. What is it that they're presenting to you as the biggest challenge?
Yes, they will present all manner of things, but the deepest and the most inevitable thing is the dissolution within themselves, especially when they do not know how to match on things, when they do not know how to deal with the realities of loneliness, the reality of lack of acceptance, and those things they try to cover. They try to cover up as a result, and so they try to, waver on getting onto an extramarital affair or finding somewhere that they can be accepted. Yet, and you find that the main thing is that they have actually not accepted themselves. So this go all the way, and issues of finances, when we are not organized in planning, we have loopholes that actually finances cannot be counted for, then we try to blame the partners. So I think what happened is actually when you are looking for something to blame, you will not fail to find it. You will always find it.
When you're looking for a mistake, you will always find it.
And cheaper of it is to find it on a partner that you're together with.
That's the most unfortunate bit. But then again, we'll talk about those ways that couples have come up with to deal with issues that emanate from relationships in this conversation. But I just want us to talk about the process of conflict resolution. So the two of you have identified that you're not reading from the same script on a particular matter. So what do you do? Where do you start?
I think three things are very inevitable. Number one is to accept that there's conflict. The act of accepting it gives you an opportunity to be able to rise within an element of reason. Number two is to admit. A conflict must be admitted, admitting that you are hurt, admitting that you're in a situation that things cannot be able to rise on. And number three is to confront. Confronting conflict is actually the element of actually getting into a place that you can lovingly deal with that conflict without necessarily going into other areas that will cause emotional indifferences. Now, loving confront is actually getting on to understand that we are in a relationship and there's a conflict that has come on here. Let us deal with this amicably without actually interfering with our relationship, which is a long term.
Lovingly, you use that term and you make it sound so easy, especially when emotions are running high and people are angry and blame games begin. But how then do you deal with somebody who they never admit that they are on the wrong side? It's only one person in the relationship that is easy to say sorry, to admit to a mistake, but the other person is always right. It's their way or the highway. How do you resolve, conflict with such a person in case you're in a relationship with them?
Wonderful. I think the most important thing is to begin with an end in mind, by showing the person that there is great in this relationship than just trying to prove themselves on how right they are. But of course, I think it's also important to find friends or people that this person is vulnerable to and bring them on board so that they can actually be able to help this person get to understand their position. Now, understanding their position is actually not accusing them of what they have actually committed, but just helping them to highlight But of course, also what I've learned over time in my leadership is that every other time that you want to confront somebody and want to bring on the light, why can't you get to mention to them the two right things that they do before you point to them the one thing that they ought to improve themselves on? In that area, they will actually, people get to appreciate and be positive when they are appreciated, rather than when they are actually accused. So adopt a system that you can, before you confront somebody on something that you know is not right with them, try to celebrate them on the right thing that they do, so that it does not just come a confrontation, but it's a blind spot that someone is actually not seeing, but you're very much aware of.
But that can come if you've mastered a high degree of emotional intelligence. Sure. Because in that heat of the moment, let me take you back to what I alluded to earlier, you're angry and there is that confrontation, blame games, and questions are being asked about why this person did this. How do you differentiate between retaliating and resolving an issue?
I think it's important for partners who are in the conflict to first of all get to understand the importance of the viability of the relationship that they are in. It's cheap to be in emotion, to be emotional and to run on top of things and try to prove yourself of who you are. But at the end of it, it becomes so expensive. Why? Because you go out of things and you end up saying things which are actually not worthy, are not constructive for the relationship. The most important thing is sometimes it would be better when you find yourself in a conflict and you're on top of things, to a little bit walk out of that, walk away from that conflict presence, so that you can be able to rejuvenate yourself and recompose yourself, in that what you say will not be reversed back to you, because what has actually gone out is eminent. So you need, if you are to be judged by what you say, it will be inevitable that what you say come out of you is something that you could be proud when someone actually replayed for you. So it is one thing to be in a conflict, but it's another thing to get into that conflict with that understanding that I'm in a conflict to resolve it, not to create another conflict with that conflict. Because sometimes the way we run on top of things and say words that are destructive ends up creating other conflicts within the conflict that was actually there. So why can't we take time? No one will actually blame you because you are silent about it and you come up with a solution. So what I could advise couples is that you are not you are not better by the quicker reaction that you're reacting towards the conflict. You are a better person by the wisdom that you bring out in the midst of that conflict, so that you can be able to have an amicable solution towards that conflict.
Let's talk about the responsibility of a particular individual in they feel aggrieved.
Yes.
There are those who propose that you also need to look at yourself and see how far you have gone, or how you have contributed to the conflict at play. Is this significant? Yeah.
It is important, number one, that the person who was offended get to accept the sting, because in most cases they will deny the sting. And when you accepting is not actually reinstating the status quo. Accepting is actually alluding to the fact that yes, we are in this situation, but this one, when you did this, it did offend me. This is how I felt when you did this. So that actually helped to enlighten and highlight onto your partner that, oh, I did not know, because someone can actually step on your toe or speak a word to you that to them is not as hurting as it does to you. But when you highlight it and you avoid to generalize it, it helps the person to be to be cognizant about it, but also to know how to approach it in future.
So you need to be open to the fact that your actions, your words can actually hurt somebody
and how
else.
did they? So that you're specific. Because in most cases, Safin, you find that people generalize. I say, look at this, the way you talk, so someone doesn't actually understand, what did I really do wrong at this particular time? But when you are specific about it, you help to enlighten that person and help them to move forward.
All right. So Fred, you've gotten to a point as a couple, you've tried all the advice and all the strategies. It's not working. What do you do?
Great. The fact that it's not working is it's not working between the two of you. It does not mean that it cannot work. Could you seek another opinion? Maybe you've actually reached the end of you, but there is someone who can actually be able to bring an idea into what you're going through. Walk out Check it out on your friends. Check it out on your confidence. Check it out. Have you visited a professional counselor to advise you on other things? Because maybe sometimes we are narrowed. You know, in relationship, there is no school of relationship. So we are narrowed on the things that we see and what we know. And so when they're exhausted, we think that everything cannot be able to work. Yet there are people who have actually walked that journey that can be able to help you on that. So please seek counsel and let yourself be helped on how to be able to move on forward. Avoid throwing the towel before the towel throws you out.
So, you know, at what point is it not worth fighting for? At what point do you say that now we go our separate ways? And if you do that, what are some of the things that you need to do? We see a lot of, you know, naming and shaming, exposing, you know, messages, pictures, and social media wars when couples, you know, read from different scripts. Is that something that you'd what did you say about that?
I won't advocate for that, but of course allow me to build it up systematically. The number one is important to get into a relationship with maturity and also with an element of understanding that beyond the relationship that you are in, there is a society that honors you, but also honors the relationship that you are in. So you need to treat one another with honor and respect. But also number two, it is important to understand that the end of a relationship does not mean that end of life. Life goes on, and there are things that can actually be able to bring you together. So actually splashing on, you know, and getting out of the roof and showing off how disgruntled you are to the public is not necessary, because you may disagree on a particular matter, but there are several other things that still bring you together. So when is it, when can you call it quits? When it becomes physical and recurrent. When something is threatening onto your life, it is important to take a step and walk away.
Be safe first.
Be safe first. It's important. Don't blame that your reason. We have actually watched incidences that have actually been fatal as a result of people trying to make things right. But also secondly, when it is too recurrent and you know you try to bring it out, you've actually tested all options, and you know you're saying respectfully, come on, let him step out, give you an opportunity to get to discover yourself, rediscover yourself, so that when you find a position and a place that you can be able to move on, it will be fantastic.
All right, Fred, unfortunately we've run out of time, but very quickly a comment on some of the feedback we're getting on social media. Terry from Bungoma: hi Safin, I broke up with my ex 2 years ago, but since then he has been spreading negative things about me and shaming me in front of my friends. What do I do? So how do you respond when one party is the one launching the missile? Kennedy Osika from Nairobi: the church shuns separation and divorce, so does it mean people should die in toxic relationships? What is worth fighting for?
Thank you so much.
We responded.
It's important to understand that, my sister, lovingly confront. Bring some, you know, the friends of this guy. Please try and bring them on together and bring the gentleman down and just say, you know what, we got onto this thing in love. We were actually not at war. Why can't you just respect me, allow me to move on, and I'll allow you to move on instead of spreading? When you find that someone is actually spreading on rumors or pictures about you, this person has disgruntled within themselves. And that's why it is important for people to have a self-discovery before they discover their partners. Because people try to deal with their issues and they bleed and they mess on other people. So please wipe yourself from your bleeding and help them to wipe themselves on their bleeding so that they do not overbleed on you. Secondly, the church is not against separation. When it's a threat to your life, it is inevitable that you consult your pastor and advise amicably. What we are actually against is when people live in a life that they engage and they divorce every other time. God hates divorce. And also there are circumstances that it's actually in the Bible that people can actually be able to divorce. When there are circumstances of lack of trust, when there are issues that are recurrent or it's violence, it is allowed, because life is more important than just remaining on a status quo.
All right, thank you so much, Fred. Of course, this is a conversation that we should be picking up. There is a lot that people are asking on social media and a lot that we also ought to have covered, but we will be picking it up in the near future.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching. We are taking a very short break. We are coming back with the sports news.